a degree in plasma physics. And he was also a consultant to NASA, and he was a consultant to people out at the Palos Verdes nuclear power generating station just 50 miles west of Phoenix. The other thing he said was there was a base on the moon. I find that quite astounding. I mean, I have heard astounding things, not only from this colonel, okay, but also probably the highest rank was a retired 3-star general, lieutenant general in the Air Force. And he knew another guy that I was in contact with, and this other guy claims that he worked 7 years on the U.S. anti-gravity program. I have a fraction of what he told me, and I've got it tape recorded. It's true. Whoa. What a sham the space program is. Because there's another space program going on. A secret space program. And that's what I was attempting to find. In fact, you don't have to go too far to find that there is some secret space programs going on, because they had their own shuttles and their own astronaut crews right out here at Vandenberg Air Force Base, unbeknownst to everybody, and they scuttled a $5 billion facility that was housed there at one time. That was back in the 80s. But the kind of space program he was talking about is using a spacecraft that can leave the bounds of our atmosphere and travel to the planet Mars at 0.8 C, 0.8 the speed of light. And I said, how do you know that? I've been there, he said.
Interesting words there from William Hamilton. Now, there is something which has been covered up in physics which can lead you to how these propulsion systems are possibly working. And like I say, they were developing anti-gravity in the late 1950s, and then it went black, as they say. And all they put out is rocket-based technology. That's what makes me suspicious, that there is something hidden. And why would they hide it? The answer that I would give is that if everyone had access to that sort of technology, you could create a vehicle which could get you into space quite easily and get you to the bottom of the ocean, and you could travel anywhere. They don't want to give people that freedom. Would you go along with that, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the evidence and you tie together stories like William Hamilton's story, you look at the research of Nick Cook and what happened in the 50s with the anti-gravity research and so on, it really, that's where it all points to, and then there's these stories of the Nazis developing saucers at the end of the Second World War. How many of those are true, I'm not sure, but it tends to be pointing in the same direction, that there is this separate development which is almost completely hidden, and all we see of those developments are these silent craft that people report very regularly. I mean, in Hamilton's clip, the guy said that he was in touch with somebody who worked for 7 years on the US anti-gravity program, which is completely undisclosed.
Now, Stan Deyo is another person who was alleged to have been probably on the fringes of that program, but still involved in the late 1960s, and he has claimed that there is a base at the South Pole. That is his claim. And Deyo, I find, an extremely convincing whistleblower. So if they are flying craft, that's my bet, that's where my money is, that there's a base at the South Pole. It may sound crazy, but why would someone as credible as Stan Deyo make that claim?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not convinced about the base at the South Pole, other than the McMurdo Station, which Michael Palin went to in his documentary. That we know that that's there. But as to secret installations, I mean, it's a very inhospitable place, and with this sort of technology, you would be able to hide it elsewhere, which in places that were more hospitable. So I'm not sure about I haven't seen credible evidence of that.
Now, what about other theories about the moon, Andrew? Because I've heard it said that there was a probe, a NASA probe on the moon, a vibration probe, that some physicist analysed the signals from it and said, well, the moon's hollow because it's actually ringing when this probe is being struck.
I believe, yeah, there was a probe that I think it was maybe a seismometer that they had on the moon, and then a fairly sort of reasonable sized asteroid struck or meteoroid or whatever, a few tons in size or whatever, and it was enough to register on this seismometer, and they said it rang like a bell, and the implication being the moon was indeed hollow. And I read one of these books years ago, about the moon being a space station and not, not a rock.
That it was towed into place.
Yeah,
it's artificial. It's got engines inside it.
And you apparently, they claim that if you look at the width of the craters, and consider how deep they should be based on the size of the impact, that many of these craters are way too shallow, for what the speed of the impact should be. Now I don't know, and I haven't looked at those things myself, so my own personal jury is still out on what the moon actually is. All I will do is point out some unusual things about the moon. One is that it's we get the total solar eclipse, and from using the size of the moon. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it's 400 times nearer. The sun is 400 times further away, in other words. So we get this perfect eclipse effect, which is how come we get that? That's a weird coincidence. And of course, the motion of the moon seems to be tied in with a woman's menstrual cycle, which I don't think has ever been properly explained to my knowledge, if there is anything to do with that. So it's true that it does seem to have an effect on our lives, directly.
There's the fact that it spins at the same rate that it goes around the Earth, so it always presents one face to the Earth like this. Now, if you read why that's happened,
it's like a gravitational drag.
That it was spinning at some point, and one half of it is attracted to the Earth more because it's
got greater weight.
Yeah, so it eventually it starts to. So I would say, well, why hasn't that happened to the Earth going around the Sun? Why doesn't the Earth present one face to the Sun? Why does the Earth still spin and the other planets still spin? So why is the Moon locked into this? It's almost
as if they've been designed to keep this one side hidden from the Earth, people on the Earth.
But you can't say that.
You can't say anything that other than it's a coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence, right? Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, just to mention David Icke's book that people I'm sure may write to you about the moon matrix and stuff, and he reckons that the moon is some type of regulating or control mechanism for this holographic matrix that we've all, we all live in on the Earth. I mean, I haven't read his book, so I can't really comment. He could be right for all I know, but so there's a lot of theories and speculation about what the moon is and what it isn't. But personally, I haven't looked into those things, so I don't think I can usefully comment other than that I know these ideas are out there.
All right, Andrew. Well, thanks for today, and we are going to do another show where we're going to look at other bodies within the solar system, such as Mars and Phobos. But until then, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.